I was supposed to be at work. That was the one reason she felt safe. That was the only reason she believed she could get away with it. But I was not at work. I was standing outside my own home, keys in hand, the stomach twisted into 1,000 knots, staring at the black BMW sitting in my driveway, car that did not belong to me. The first idea that occurred to me was not even rage. It was disbelief, the kind that causes your mind to reject what your eyes observe. Perhaps it was a friend. Perhaps it was an Uber driver on a break. Maybe. Now I realized there were no reasons for this. I went forward, scarcely feeling the cold air on my skin. The house was silent from the outside, but I could see the faint flicker of the living room lights through the curtains. She wasn't expecting me home. She assumed she had time. I strolled up to the front door, unlocked it quietly, and went inside. The sound of my own heartbeat was deafening, but underneath, I could hear something else, a quiet hum of voices, hers and his. I moved without thinking, followed the sound down the hall. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, allowing me to view without them knowing, and when I looked in, it seemed like my body shut down. Emily sat on the bed, legs crossed, and leaned toward him like a schoolgirl with a crush, a tall, well-dressed man with flawless hair and an expensive watch, the type of guy that enters a room as if he owns the place. Then she laughed, not the false nice one she gave me after I told a joke, not the tired, unfocused look she'd been giving me for months. This was real. She let out a laugh from her chest, from her gut, the type that illuminated her entire face, the kind I hadn't seen before. I'm not even sure how long. I didn't know I had pushed the door wide until the laughter stopped and Emily turned to see me standing there. This was the first thing she did. She rolled her eyes. Not a shock, not guilt, but frustration, as if I were an inconvenience. Oh my God, really? She moaned and swung her legs off the bed, like a naughty adolescent caught sneaking away. You were not supposed to be home. I did not say anything. Couldn't. My brain was still adjusting to the fact that this was real, that it was occurring right in front of me. The person, whoever he was, didn't seem ashamed. He sat there calmly, as if everything was normal. As if I was the problem here. Emily rose up and brushed her hair back. Do not give me that look, Jake. I blinked. That look. What the hell is this? I eventually spoke, my voice quieter than planned. She scoffed. How does it look like? And then something inside me snapped, and I can't remember making the decision to relocate. One moment I was standing at the doorway, my stomach in knots. My mind is reeling. The next moment, I was stepping inside, reducing the gap between us. Not toward Emily, towards him. He scarcely flinched. He looked up at me with a lazy half-smile, as if I were some foolish kid having a tantrum. That should have been my warning. Someone using that expression does not fear the repercussions. Emily sighed behind me. Oh, my God. Can you not create a scene? Is there a scene? She had the audacity to act like I was embarrassing her, as if I had walked in on her moment rather than the other way around. I ignored her. My eyes were fixed on him. Get up, I said. He raised an eyebrow but did not move. Relax, guy. His voice sounded soft. He practiced as if he had been in this scenario before and knew just how to handle it. Emily moaned. Seriously, Jake. Quit being so macho. You are acting pathetic. Pathetic? That was then I discovered how deep this went. She didn't just get caught. She wasn't only guilty. She didn't care. I had spent years loving this woman. Fight for her. We thought we were a team. And now she's standing in our bedroom, arms crossed. She rolled her eyes, as if I were an annoyance. As if I were some naive, clueless husband who refused to move out of the way. My fists clenched. I wanted to remove the smug grin from the guy's face. I wanted to yell at Emily until she realized what she'd just burned down. But I didn't. Because of this. This was not a fight I would ever win. Instead, I took a slow breath and looked Emily directly in the eyes. How long? She blinked and then shrugged. As if she were being asked how long she had been on hold with customer service. I do not know. Several months. I felt nauseous. My stomach twisted. My skin became cold, and the space suddenly felt too small, too tight. The person who hadn't gotten up yet groaned and scratched his jaw, as if all of this was too much for him. Look, man, I believe we should all simply, I snapped. Shut the hell up. He lifted his hands in amusement. Touchy. Emily rolled her eyes again. Jake, don't be so dramatic. Dramatic? Something inside me became icy cold. I gazed at her, really stared at her, and it was the first time I saw her. For what? She wasn't the woman I married. That was not the woman I battled for. Just a stranger standing in my bedroom, looking at me as if I were nothing. I nodded more to myself than at her. Then, without further word, I turned and walked away. Emily did not stop me. She did not call after me. She did not speak a single thing. And that was the worst part. I don't recall getting into my automobile. I don't recall leaving the driveway, but I ended up parked in an empty lot a few miles away. Hands are grasping the wheel, staring at nothing. My mind was locked in a loop, repeating every detail of what had just occurred, attempting to make sense of it. I tried to convince myself it wasn't real, but it was. Emily was a cheater, had been cheating for several months, and when I caught her, she didn't cry. She did not beg. She did not even pretend to be apologetic. She just stood there, outraged that I had the guts to walk up and ruin her evening. My phone vibrated in the cup holder for a short second. I let myself believe it was her. Perhaps she recognized what she'd done. Perhaps she wants to fix it. But no, it was my best friend, Mark. Mark and I have been pals since college, the kind of friend who would arrive at 3 a.m. If necessary, he could use a baseball bat. I told him weeks ago that something felt strange about Emily. He told me to trust my instincts. I did not. I should have. I picked Jake up. His voice was sharp and urgent. Dude, where are you? Nowhere, I mumbled. A pause. You found out, didn't you? I let out a breath. Yeah. Silence. Then he heard a chair scrape against the floor. Where are you now? I'm going to grab you. I paused. I wasn't sure what I wanted. I didn't know what to do next. But I knew one thing. I couldn't sit in that automobile alone, drowning in my own thoughts, feeling like a fool who had squandered years of his life on someone who deserved nothing. I gave him the address. 15 minutes later, Mark's truck drew up next to me. He barely gave me time to open the door before he began chatting. She's a piece of crap, he stated bluntly. There are no gentle words, no hesitation. Always has been. This caught me off surprise. What? He pulled out a sharp breath and gripped the driving wheel. I didn't want to say anything before, but I've never trusted her. Something about her always seemed false. But you adored her, so I kept my mouth shut. I should have warned you. I leaned back against the seat and stared out the window. I should have noticed it. She's lying, Jake. She is a liar. She didn't even try to hide her ass when you caught her. Right. I laughed, but not really. Nope. Yes, because she does not care. She became bored, and instead of speaking to you like a respectable person, she simply found someone else. People like her, they do not feel guilty. They simply walk on and leave you pick up the bits. This squeezed my jaw. I wanted to argue and defend her, say she was not like that. Maybe there was an explanation I hadn't considered, but I couldn't come up with one, because he was correct. And the worst part, I wasn't sure if she was finished with me yet. Mark drove. I didn't ask where we were heading, and he didn't respond. He just drove. The buzz of the engine broke the silence between us. I glanced out the window, my mind racing between memories of the past and the picture of Emily sitting on our bed, rolling her eyes as if I was the one ruining her night. I'd spent years of my life creating something with her. And for what? So she could laugh in my face. The moment she was arrested, I inhaled through my nose and gripped my knee to keep my hands from shaking. She's going to text you, Mark announced abruptly. I blinked. What? She's about to text you. Perhaps not tonight. Perhaps not tomorrow, but soon. And when she does, there will be no apology. It will be some nonsense, an excuse to make herself feel better. She will rewrite history to make you the bad guy. And she had no option but to do what she did. I didn't want to believe him, but deep down, I knew he was correct. Emily never accepted responsibility for anything. If something went wrong, someone else was always to blame. And if she ever apologized, it wasn't because she intended it. It was because she wanted the situation to end. A piercing buzz in my pocket caused me to startle. Mark looked at me. Have I told you? I took out my phone. Emily, are you serious now? I stared at the screen. That was it. No explanation, no apologies. Just 6 words that made it sound like I was the one who messed up. I showed Mark. He laughed beneath his breath and shook his head. Classic. You walk in on her cheating and somehow become the problem. Unreal. I clenched my teeth, my thumb lingering above the keyboard. My first instinct was to blast into her for what she did, to demand answers, to make her feel even a fraction of how I felt. But suddenly something in my mind clicked. She didn't care. She didn't mind when she did it. She didn't mind that I captured her, and she certainly didn't care. Now, if I texted her back, she would distort things, make herself the victim, and make me doubt reality. It would be the beginning of a back and forth that would finish with me apologizing to her for making such a big deal about it. Not this time. I locked my phone and placed it into my pocket. Mark smirked. Good. Allow her to sit with that. I let out a breath. I'm not sure what to do next. He shrugged. You do not have to. Not yet. Right now, all you have to do is process. And if that means sitting in a bar drinking whiskey till you lose feeling in your face, that's what we'll do. For the first time that night, I nearly grinned. Is this your professional advice? Damn correct it is. I wasn't sure what my next step would be, but I did know one thing. Emily was not going to make the decision for me. Mark was not kidding about the whiskey. We ended up at a dive bar on the opposite side of town, the type of area where the lighting was too dim. The bartender appeared to have seen too much, and the music was just loud enough to deter others from intruding on your business. Perfect. I was not much of a drinker, but tonight was different. Mark instructed both of us to double. Neat. He slid my over, looking me attentively as if he was waiting for me to collapse. But I wasn't about to. Not yet. Not in front of others. I discovered the first one in a single mouthful. It burnt all the way down. Mark whistled softly. Damn. All right. I put down the drink and ran my palm over my face. My brain was still striving to keep up with everything. Several hours ago, I was just a guy returning home from work. Now I'm here in a pub, processing the reality that my ex-wife was screwing someone else in our house, in our bed, and laughing about it. Mark tapped his glass against the countertop. So, what is the plan? What's the plan? He gestured vaguely. Yeah. What happens next? Divorce, revenge, changing your name and disappearing in the woods. I gave forth a hollow laugh. I do not know, Guy. I haven't thought that far ahead. Mark tilted his head. Well, I've had to ask. Are you sure this is the first time it has hit me harder than the whiskey? I blinked. What? He swirled the drink in his glass without looking at me. Are you certain this was her first time cheating? Because, from where I was standing, she appeared to be very comfortable being caught. As if it was nothing new to her, I opened my mouth to argue or say anything. Of course, this was the first time Emily refused. But then I remembered how she acted, how she was unfazed, like if she had practiced this moment. My stomach twisted. I shake my head, more at myself than him. Jesus Christ, she. Mark leaned forwards. Keep your voice low. You need to access her phone. I massaged my temples. Dude, I am not doing that. It is over. I don't need to see anymore. No, you should see everything. He pointed at me. Do you believe she's just been messing around for a few months? But what if it has been years? What if this guy is not the only one? You don't want to be the man who enters a courtroom, believing he knows the truth, only to be caught off guard. I breathed sharply. He had a point, but how the hell was I going to get into her phone? Mark must have read my thoughts because he grinned. You mentioned she texted you, correct? I nodded slowly. That shows she still believes she is in control. That suggests there is still an opening. He leaned in. Text her back. I frowned. What? Tell her you want to discuss. He smirked. Then get the proof you need. The idea of sitting across from Emily and pretending I wanted to talk things out made my skin crawl, but the prospect of leaving without knowing the entire truth was frightening. I took out my phone and texted her. Emily replied almost instantly. So, now you want to talk? I could hear a sneer in her remarks, which made my fury boil, but I pushed myself to remain cool. I needed her to believe I remained under her spell. I typed back. We have to work this out. I don't want to toss everything away because of one error, a lie, a terrible and embarrassing falsehood. But if she felt I was weak enough to forgive her, she'd lower her guard. 3 dots appeared. Then they vanished. Then they returned. I knew exactly what was going on. She was assessing whether she still had me under control. Finally, her response came in. Fine. Meet me at our usual location tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Where is our spot? For years, we went to this small bistro every Sunday. It was where I proposed and we had our biggest arguments, where I told her I wanted to spend my entire life with her. She now intended to use it as a backdrop for her manipulations. I tightened my jaw in response. Okay, I will see you then. Mark smiled before I even looked up. Dumb man. I didn't think you had it. I put my phone in my pocket. What happens now? He leaned back in his chair, seeming overly pleased. You now have access to her phone, and we will discover how far down this rabbit hole we can travel. The next day, I sat at our normal cafe seat, pretending to be a man filled with hope. Emily arrived 5 minutes late, looking too lovely for a lady who had recently been discovered cheating. Her hair was curled, and her makeup was exquisite. I was wearing a dress that I had not seen in years. She sat across from me, removing her shades like a celebrity and avoiding cameras. She smirked as she replied, "This is awkward." I feigned a chuckle. Yeah. She looked at me for a second, as if she was trying to read my thoughts. She sighed heavily. Look, Jake, I understand you're upset, but can we please be grown-ups about this? What happened, happened? She waved her hand, as if to discard a terrible meal at a restaurant. There is no use in dragging it out. There's no use in dragging this out. My fingers dug into my jeans beneath the table. I had to concentrate on the plan rather than my anger. I breathed, leaned forward, and lowered my voice. I do not comprehend. I made my eyes appear fatigued, defeated. Why him? Why now? She tilted her head, almost as if she felt sorry for me. Almost. Jake, come on. Things haven't been going well between us for a time. I resisted the impulse to chuckle. She had not even attempted to correct anything. Instead, I shake my head. I just want to know the truth. No more secrets. She scrutinized me again, and I could tell she was undecided. Then go slowly. She nodded. Finished. No more secrets. She reached inside her purse and took out her phone. I held my breath. I watched as she unlocked it. I only had a few seconds to scroll through her texts. Seconds to act. I shifted in my seat, tipping my drink over into her lap. She gasped and jerked back. Jake, what the hell? I rushed up and grabbed napkins. Crap, I apologize. Here, let me. Her phone was resting on the table, unlocked. I snatched it. Emily froze. Her eyes widened when she realized what had transpired. Jake. Unfortunately, it was too late. I was already browsing through her messages, and what I discovered. It was even worse than I expected. My stomach fell as soon as my eyes met the screen. There was more than one guy. It was more than simply a few months. There were several guys, different names and interactions. Some date back more than a year. Messages full of inside jokes, pet names. Plans are to meet in hotels. Excuses she gave me for work trips that coincided well with her. Chats about meeting a random guy. I scrolled quickly. My hands are shaking. Emily lurched forward, attempting to grasp the phone. Jake, return it now. I pushed my chair back, stood up. Half of the cafe turned to look, sensing the stress. But I didn't care. I was reading messages I was not meant to view. Last night was incredible. I can't quit thinking about you. Not by the guy in my bedroom. A different guy. I wish I was in your bed rather than his right now. He's so dumb that I don't have to try very hard. The breath fled my lungs the entire time. I assumed she was distant, exhausted or stressed from job. She was laughing at me behind my back. Emily rose up and hissed beneath her breath. Jake, if you don't give me my phone right now, I swear to God. I raised a hand. My voice came out strangely calm. Say nothing. She blinked, probably stunned. For the first time, I was advocating for myself. I locked eyes with her. How many? Her mouth opened, closed. She swallowed. Jake, how many? Emily. She expelled a quick breath. She rolled her eyes again. Why does this matter? Something inside of me broke. I laughed, really laughed. Emily flinched as she heard a rough, hollow sound. You know what? You're correct. It does not matter. I threw her phone on the table, nearly knocking over the salt shaker. Because I am done. Her eyes narrowed. What do you mean by done? I grabbed my jacket. I pushed my chair in. This implies you no longer have to sneak around. You don't have to pretend to win. I'm out. I turned to leave, but she reached out and grabbed my arm. Wait. I pulled it away. Do not touch me. For the first time since I captured her, Emily appeared scared. Not sorry. Not regretful. Scared because she knew she had lost control. I turned and left the cafe. Emily did not chase me. She knew there was nothing else to say. That I strolled out of the cafe and into the cool evening air, but I barely noticed it. My heart pounded in my chest. My hands are still shaking. I'd spent years of my life loving someone who didn't simply cheat. She insulted me for believing her. I needed to get out of here. I had hardly gotten to my car when my phone started vibrating. I recognized who it was before I even looked. Emily. I let it ring. Then came the text. Jake, talk to me. I gritted my teeth. Oh, now she wanted to speak. She recognized she wasn't going to get out of this by manipulating others. Another bus. Do not walk away like this. I laughed bitterly. Like this? As if she hadn't been banging other men behind my back for over a year. Then another one. Come home so we can figure things out. Home. I gazed at the phrase, a gradual, painful awareness sinking into my gut. She wasn't asking me to come home because she felt sorry. She wasn't asking because she wanted to fix the situation. She asked because she believed she still had me. That's when I realized exactly what I had to do. I dialed Mark. He picked up on the first ring. Tell me you made it out of there, he said. I did, I mumbled as I unlocked my car. But I need your aid. He did not even hesitate. Give it a name, I exhaled. I am leaving a beat of silence. Then, where are we going? Anywhere except here. Following the breakup, I grasped the steering wheel. I quit my work without hesitation and was set to take a flight. I only need to pack my belongings first. Mark let out a faint whistle. Damn. Are you actually doing this? Yeah. There was no way to repair this. There's no salvaging it. Emily had made her decision, and I was now making mine. All right, Mark replied. I will meet you at your place. I hung up and drove. By the time I drove into my driveway, Mark was already there, resting against the truck. Are you sure about this? He asked as I stepped outside. I nodded. Yeah. Emily's car was in the driveway, but I wasn't concerned. I was not here to argue. I wasn't here to hear whatever excuse she was going to hurl at me. I came here to take back my life. Mark followed me in, and there she was. Emily stood in the living room, arms crossed, and waited. Jake, she started, her voice softer now. Let us just know. I passed by her and headed right for the bedroom. She blinked. No. I wrenched open the closet, grabbed a duffel bag, and unpacked my belongings. Emily's footsteps followed quickly behind me. Jake, stop. Let's sit down and speak. I spun around, and she genuinely flinched. There's nothing left to discuss, I said, voice even. I saw the texts, Emily. Not only him, all of them. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. You did not simply cheat, I continued. You joked about it. You referred to me as clueless. You assumed I would never find out. I tossed a bunch of clothes into the bag. So, guess what I did? Emily stepped forward, reaching for my arm. Jake, I was foolish, okay? It did not signify anything. I yanked away. You do not get to decide what means significance to me. Silence. For the first time, I noticed something cracked beneath her eyes. Not guilty, not regret. Fear. She understood I was actually leaving. She tried one more. You cannot simply chuck everything aside. I gave a harsh laugh. I didn't throw it out, did you? I zipped up the bag, swung it over my shoulder, and exited the bedroom. Mark was already holding open the entrance door. Emily followed me. Her voice is increasing now. Jake, be serious. Where are you even going? I stepped out. Anywhere except here. She paused in the doorway, astonished, as if she never imagined I'd walk away. But I did, and I haven't looked back. I drove silently. Mark was in his pickup behind me, following me to his location. I still didn't know where I was heading or what I was going to do next. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to spend another second in that house. Emily had texted me 7 times inside the last 10 minutes. I did not read them. I did not need to. I already knew the script. Anger comes first, followed by guilt tripping. If all else fails, fake regret. I'd wasted enough time allowing her to control me. I wasn't going to give her another second. Mark's house was small but cozy, and the instant I walked in, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. He tossed a beer at me and sat across from me on the couch. So, he said, cracking his own open. What happens now? I exhaled. I do not know, Guy. He took a sip and watched me closely. She's going to try to lure you back in. I know she'll weep. Say she got lost. Say she wasn't sure what she was thinking. I understand. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. And if it doesn't work, she'll get mean. I clenched my jaw. That was the part I was waiting for. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. I eventually looked at it. Are you actually doing this? Jake, I made an error. This is something we can fix. Do not be an idiot. You're wasting your life for nothing. I exhaled sharply and tossed my phone onto the table. She is already attempting to twist it. Mark snorted. Of course, she is. She can't handle the notion that you're departing. She assumed she would always have you, dude. He pointed to my phone. She isn't texting you because she loves you. She's contacting you because you're not playing the part she assigned you. I nodded and rubbed my face. He was correct. Emily did not miss me. She missed having someone to lie to, someone to come home to after she'd finished screwing around. She misses the ease of getting away with it. I stopped playing that game. Mark stretched. So you are quitting your job? I paused. Yeah. He grinned. Damn, my dude is pressing the entire restart button. I had to laugh, shaking my head. I can't sit at that office every day knowing what I do. She's probably already telling a story to our pals, making me look nuts. Mark nodded. Good. Burn everything down. Make a fresh start. Do you have any money saved up? Enough. Mark took another sip of his beer and smirked. Then screw it. Let's go huge. I raised an eyebrow. What? He leaned forward. You're pissed. You're free and nothing holds you back anymore. Why stay in the city? Why not just pick a location? Book a flight and go. I stared at him. The thought had been lingering in the back of my mind since I walked out of that house. However, hearing him say it out made it feel more real. Mark continued. You could sit here and mope, or you could pack your belongings, board a plane, and never think about Emily's cheating ass again. I took a slow breath for the first time in my life. I had nothing holding me back. And then I realized exactly what I was going to do. 2 days later, I was standing at an airport. I have a one-way ticket in my hand. I'd never done anything like this before. I was the man who played it safe, made sound decisions, planned for the future, and always considered the implications. But there was nothing more to lose. Mark had helped me pack. Not that I needed much. Just a duffel bag containing the essentials. My passport, savings, and an entirely new phone number. Because I had no intention of hearing from Emily ever again. The night before, she attempted to call from a new number. I almost did not pick up, but curiosity got the best of me. When I responded, she was already in full damage control mode. Jake, please talk like an adult. I did not say anything. Just let her speak. She viewed that as a green light. I know I harmed you. I realize I made a mistake, but do you really want to toss away everything we've achieved together over this? Come on. You aren't flawless either. I let out a breath and shook my head. There it was. The rewrite. She cheated. She lied. But nevertheless, I was supposed to share the guilt. I had kept my voice calm. How many? Silence. Then silently. Jake. How many? Then pause. I do not know. I closed my eyes. That is all I needed to hear. I hung up. I blocked the phone, and that was the last time I heard her voice. Standing in this airport, I experienced something I hadn't felt in years. Weightless. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Mark, I still think you should have allowed me to slit her tires. I smirked and typed back. Not worth the effort. Where are you flying to? I exhaled while glancing at the screen above me. I had purchased my ticket on impulse. Didn't overthink it. I didn't make any plans. I just picked a location and purchased the dang ticket. Spain. Mark responded instantly. Of course. Send me a picture of the first margarita you drank. The boarding call was broadcast over the intercom. My flight was ready. I grabbed my luggage, took one last look at my former existence, and went into the future. Emily had attempted to break me. She assumed I would crawl back. She assumed I would let her modify the story. She was wrong. I didn't belong to her anymore. I belonged to myself. Here's the next story. I used to believe that betrayals occurred gradually and insidiously. Little lies are building up. Subtle behavioral alterations. A progressive loss of trust. But when my wife's infidelity was revealed, it was not slow at all. It struck me like a gunshot to the skull. Fast, brutal, and impossible to ignore. Began with a laugh. Not Emily's either. A man laughs. Loud, careless, and far too cozy in my home. I'd just walked in. The day had been long, with work, traffic, and the daily grind, but I didn't expect anything special. When I unlocked the front door, it was early evening. Emily spent most of her time in the kitchen or on the couch watching television. She'd made me pretend to like, but when I stepped inside, the air felt strange, as if the house wasn't mine anymore. Then I heard Emily's loud, throaty laugh, followed by a playful shaking. I did not freeze. I did not hesitate. My feet moved before my brain could keep up, impelled by something deeper than rationality. I walked down the hallway. My heart was thumping so fiercely that it obscured my ears. I turned the corner into the living room. My universe had divided in two. Emily was sitting on the couch, way too near to a man I'd never seen before in my life. He was content. Legs sprawled out, arm hung over the back of the couch, as if he belonged there. As if this were his home, wife, and life. Emily turned her head slowly. Way too slow for someone who had recently been caught doing something innocent. Her eyes flashed briefly, almost as if amused. As if it were hilarious. As if I were overreacting. "Oh," she said. Her speech lacked any trace of shame. "You are home early." I didn't respond. I was glancing at the guy. He glanced at me, too, but not fearfully. Not with guilt. The bastard grinned. "I've never wanted to shatter someone's face more in my life. Who the hell is this?" My voice remained calm, but my hands were not. I could feel them tense into fists at my sides. Emily sighed, as if I were an inconvenience, as if I had just walked in on her, trying to unwind instead of whatever the hell this was. "This is Jake," she remarked, handing me that. "What is the big deal?" Tone that raised my blood pressure. "We were just hanging around, Jake. I'm hanging out at home, on my couch." I turned to face him, my body moving before my mind could process what I was going to do. I just barely stopped myself. "Get out." Jake stretched like a lazy cat, fully unconcerned. He did not move. Emily clicked her tongue and finally stood up. "Relax. It's not as you think." I let out a bitter, humorless laugh. "Oh, then explain." She rolled her eyes as if I were the idiot here. "We were just talking." She said something like that, and it made a difference. Jake finally got up, brushing imaginary dust off his pants as if he had all the time in the world. He wasn't a big guy and wasn't scary in the least, but the way he acted so smug made me angry. He looked at Emily. "Should I go? Should I go?" Emily hesitated. She actually paused. That was it. That was the moment I realized I'd walked into my house and caught my wife with another man. She didn't leap up, and Remorse didn't scurry to explain. She didn't even appear bothered. Instead, she agonized over whether or not to send him away, like she had to consider it, as if he had some say in the situation. I took a step closer, not towards Emily, but towards Jake. His expression changed just little, just enough to see the spark of anxiety beneath all that bravado. I kept my voice low and controlled. "Get out of my house, now." Jake looked at Emily again, and this time she nodded, as if she were giving permission. "All right." He put his hands up, as if this was all a misunderstanding, as if I were the insane one. He walked by me unhurriedly, and just as he reached the door, he looked back and grinned. It wasn't an apologetic smile. It wasn't even you that made me smile. It was terrible. It was the type of smile that said, "I will be back." I wanted to hit him. I wanted to put my fist through his teeth so badly that my muscles ached from the restriction, but I did not. I turned to Emily, who was also smiling. I did not recognize her. The woman standing in front of me, with that smug little smile curling at the corners of her mouth. This was not my wife. This wasn't the woman I'd spent my life with. We made plans together. I shared everything with them. This was somebody else. Someone who had just watched another man walk out of my house, as if it were his, and smiled. I felt it then. Something bitter and horrible is twisting deep inside my gut. The kind of wrath that doesn't erupt but rather implodes, reducing everything inside you to molten debris. And yet she remained there, unconcerned. So she said, stretching her arms out like if she had just concluded a long and tiring day, "Are you going to freak out right now?" I took a slow stride forward. "Freak out." My voice sounded low. "Dangerous. You let another man into our home while I was away." I sat beside him on the couch. Like, what?" she interjected, arching an eyebrow as if I was at ease. I enjoyed his company. I froze. She was taunting me, testing me to see how far she could push me before I cracked, but I refused to give her any satisfaction. Instead, I exhaled through my nose, tightening my jaw so hard I feared my teeth would break. "Are you cheating on me, Emily?" Her lips twitched, barely, not guilty, not in regret, in amusement. "You're being theatrical," she remarked, brushing past me to the kitchen, as if we were talking about the weather. "I can have pals, right? Friends." I turned and watched her get a wine glass from the cupboard, moving so carelessly that it made me sick. She poured herself a drink, took a sip, and leaned against the counter. He smirked as his eyes focused on mine. That's when something clicked. She was not afraid. She was not looking for an excuse or a falsehood. She was not even upset that I was blaming her. She seemed to enjoy it. That fact hit me the most, since if she was having fun, it meant she wasn't simply betraying me. She wanted me to know. I took a slow breath, keeping my hands by my sides and my voice controlled. How long? Her smirk spread, but she tilted her head, as if she didn't understand. How long? What a step ahead. How long have you slept with him? This time, she laughed. Actually laughed. Oh my God, you're so intense, she exclaimed, shaking her head. Do you hear yourself? I did not move, didn't blink, just waited. She sighed and tilted the glass in her fingers to watch the wine swirl. Do you think I'm going to confess to some sensational affair just because you've been so broody and dramatic? I remained mute. Her smile faltered just slightly. Then she put the glass down and leaned forward. Her voice became softer, more patronizing. She muttered, If I were cheating on you, what would you actually do about it? The words landed with a slap. Not just the words, but how she said them, as if it were a challenge. It seemed as if she'd already determined there was nothing I could do. Nothing I would do. And maybe she was correct, because I wasn't sure either. What do you do if your wife doesn't just cheat? She challenges you to do something about it. I did not respond to her because what the hell was I supposed to say about that? She stood there watching me like a cat would a dying mouse. Amused. Entertained. I am waiting to see what I will do next. She had already determined that I would do nothing. That's what burnt the most. Not only was it a betrayal, but it was also outrageous. She was not ashamed. She wasn't apologizing. She was tormenting me. The second stretched between us, thick with something bitter and unpleasant. She tapped her nails on the countertop. Then it was as if she had forgotten I was standing there. She grabbed up her phone and began scrolling. As if she were bored. That was it. I moved before I knew what I was doing. I lunged over the counter and grabbed the phone right out of her hands. She froze for the first time. For the first dang time. Her expression changed. It just lasted a second, just a flicker. But I saw it. The shift. The moment her confidence crumbled. She soon laughed. Are you serious? She crossed her arms and shook her head. What? Are you going to look through my phone like a jealous psycho? I ignored her. My hands were already moving, and my thumb was swiping up to unlock the screen. Because of course, she kept using the same passcode. And just like that, everything collapsed. Messages. So many messages. Initially, it was just Jake. Jake? When is he working? Is it late again? Jake. I am thinking about yesterday night. Jake, I can still taste you. Send me a picture. The one I prefer. But it was not just Jake. Another number. Another man. Another round of texts that made my stomach turn. And another. And another. My blood became very cold. I scrolled and scrolled. My hands tightened around the phone so much that my knuckles ached. There was more than one man. It was not even two. Emily had a whole stinking roster. She wasn't simply cheating. She'd been playing with me for months, if not years. A nasty, disgusting laugh escaped my throat. I put the phone down. I pushed it toward her. Wow, my voice seemed strange, hollow. You aren't even attempting to disguise it. Emily picked up the phone, looked at the screen, and simply shrugged. What would you like me to say? She asked. That I am sorry. I regret it. Would this help you feel better? She tilted her head, studying me and waiting. I could not even speak. There were so many things I wanted to yell, scream, throw, and shatter. However, all I could do was stare at her. My wife, the woman I had loved and created a life with, turned out to be a stranger. A stranger who had lied to me without any remorse. A stranger was looking at me now, not with guilt, not even with rage, but with amusement. Like this was just a game, as if my misery was entertainment. And for the first time in my life, I felt a shift within me. Something dark, something that tells me she believes you will do nothing. Prove her incorrect. I moved gently and deliberately. Every part of me wants to burst. I wanted to shout, toss something, break something, but I did not. Instead, I reached into my wallet, took out a few bucks, and tossed them on the counter between us. Emily lifted her eyebrow. What is this? I genuinely grinned. However, there was nothing nice about it. Taxi fare. Her eyes hardly fluttered for a second. Are you kicking me out? No, I replied, keeping my voice calm. I am telling you to get out of my house before I stop being pleasant about it. She scoffed. Wow, you're upset with me after everything I've put up with. I blinked. Put up with. She grabbed the money off the counter and held it up teasingly. Oh, thank you so much. My generous spouse. What would I do without your handouts? I took a slow, non-threatening stride forward, just close enough to make sure she saw the boiling wrath beneath my skin. She did not flinch. She smirked. Then she went for the kill. Do you know what's funny? She said, tilting her head. You seem astonished, but I believe you knew. You felt it, right? She leaned in, her voice low, and you said nothing. Something inside of me cracked. I did not yell. I did not toss anything. I laughed, startling her a little, just enough for me to notice a crack. You know what? I said, nodding and seeming to examine it. Maybe you are right. I shrugged, casual and almost amused. Maybe I knew. Perhaps I ignored it. Perhaps I led you to believe you were getting away with it. Her smirk twitched. What the hell does that mean? I took a step back. It indicates I'm finished. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You aren't going anywhere. I took out my phone, tapped it a few times, and then turned the screen towards her. Her countenance didn't change much at first, just mild confusion when she looked at the email that was open on my screen. Then she read it and froze. I saw it happen in real time. Her lips parted slightly, her breath froze in her throat, and her little confidence shattered into dust. Because in my outbox, ready to send, was a wonderfully prepared email addressed to her supervisor, complete with screenshots of her texts with Jake and the other men. Everything. Bank records, hotel receipts, and her brief work travels that were actually weekend stays in someone else's bed. The entire darn thing, packaged neatly in an email, prepared to demolish her precious little world. Her face had lost its color. You would not. I smiled. Cold. Ruthless. Do you think you are the only one who has been playing a game? Her fingers twitch. She acted as if she wanted to seize my phone, but she did not dare. You're not telling the truth, she hissed. I tapped the screen. An email was sent. She lunged, but too late. Emily grasped my phone like a savage beast, but I backed away far too quickly. She did not make it. Stumbled. She almost tripped over her own dang arrogance. And I laughed, not because it was humorous, not because I relished it, but because it was the moment she understood she no longer had control. Her hands shook now, and her chest rose and fell too quickly. What the hell did you do? I just watched her remain cool and composed. I sent it. Her pupils are blue and white. You are lying. Check your inbox. She struggled for her phone and almost dropped it. Her fingers twitched now, swiping and scrolling, and her breathing became shorter and sharper. Then she found it. The email was delivered unstoppable. For the first time that night, Emily appeared terrified. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. Her gaze shifted back to me. Her mouth opened and closed, as if she were attempting to elicit a response. Is there any response? But there wasn't one because it was checkmate. She had played the game. She'd smiled, smirked, cheated, and laughed at me. Laughed. But she'd forgotten something. She assumed I would do nothing. She figured she could get away with it all. But suddenly she was witnessing her entire life unravel in real time. Her well-paying job is no more. Her professional reputation was shattered. Her flawless little appearance of control. Shattered. She knew it. I noticed it in her eyes. She lunged at me again, not to hit or damage me, but attempting to undo what cannot be undone. Her hands crashed into my chest. Undo it, she screamed. You bastard, undo it. I did not move. I scarcely felt it. Do you want to cheat? I said this in a hushed voice. Fine. Do you want to act like this? Marriage meant nothing. Fine. I leaned in close enough to see her panicked expression. But acts have consequences. Her expression twisted. You can't do this to me. I took calm, measured breaths. I did nothing to you, Emily. I stepped back and tilted my head. Did you do this to yourself? Then her phone buzzed. She flinched, as if it were a gunshot. Another buzz. Another. Her employer and coworkers. Whoever it was, the fallout was already underway, and she knew it. Her hands were shaking so violently that she almost dropped her phone as she read the message that had just come in. Her face had lost its color. She swallowed, blinked, and looked at me as if for the first time, as if she had now grasped what kind of man I was. Her lips parted again. Her voice was quieter now, softer. Wait, I raised an eyebrow. She licked her lips. We. This is something we can fix. I smiled. Then I laughed in her face. Emily had never been desperate before. Not once. Not in the 7 years I've known her. But now she was drowning. And it was gorgeous. Her hands were still quivering, fingers clutching her phone as if it were a lifeline. But she wasn't messaging or phoning. She was procrastinating, trying to figure out a way out. There is a way to undo this, but there wasn't one. The instant I pushed send, her fate was sealed. I crossed my arms and watched her. What were you saying? She inhaled sharply and forced a grin. Force. Charm. The sweetness was forced. Forced control. This is something we can fix, she repeated, this time with a quieter voice. Simply undo it. Call your supervisor. Say it was an error. You're mad. I got it. However, do not do anything that you will regret. I tilted my head. Do you think I'll regret this? She gulped hard. Yes. I laughed. I wasn't sure which portion was funniest. The fact that she believed she could influence me after all this, or the fact that she believed she still possessed leverage. I leaned on the counter and shook my head. You don't understand, do you? Her fingers clasped around the phone. What do I get? I smiled, slow and chilly. I stopped regretting things the minute you smiled at me, as another man walked out of my home. Her eyes fluttered. Bullseye. She took a breath, and when she began again, her tone softened. Calculated. Fake. We don't need to do this. She tried again and took a step nearer me. I was stupid. I was selfish. But we can get through it. She grabbed for my hand. I let her go for a second. Just long enough for her to believe she was getting through to me. Just long enough to see hope return to her expression. Then I drew my hand away. No, Emily. I returned the same sneer she had given me previously. You can't do this to me. Her face broke. I turned away and walked to the door. I didn't really care where I was heading. Maybe go to a pub or a motel. Maybe somewhere that wasn't here. But then she said something that made me stop dead. Something caused me to whirl around so quickly that the air seemed changed. Something that altered everything. She raised her chin, jaw clenched, eyes furious. And then she spit. It was never only me. For a moment, I believed I had misheard her. The words hung in the air, piercing and unpleasant, slicing through whatever restraint I still had. I slowly turned, my body moving faster than my thoughts could keep up. What have you just said? Emily's lips curved, but not in a sneer this time. Not in amusement. In spite of. Do you think you are a genius? She hissed, arms crossed. That you are the only person who has been playing a game. My pulse raced. Explain. She scoffed. She rolled her eyes as if she was annoyed with me. As if I were the one who didn't get it. Then she grabbed her phone and began tapping. Fast and furious. A second later, she turned the screen towards me, and my stomach fell. There was a message thread. My best friend's name is at the top. Tyler. My thoughts couldn't keep up with what I was witnessing. What? I read her mails to him. His texts returned. Tyler, we have to be careful. He will find out eventually. Emily. He will not. He's blind. Tyler. You say that. But if he does, we are both screwed. Emily. Then do not be dumb. He trusts you. I blinked. My hands felt numb. Cold. Tyler is my best friend. Not Jake. Not just any man from a bar. The one I trusted the most. Emily saw my face. I could see where I was going. Still. She smiled. Slow. Cruel. Did you think Jake was the only one? She whispered and tilted her head. Oh, darling, you're very blind. I saw red. My vision blurred. My ears ringing. My muscles became so stiff that I felt I'd split in half. Tyler has been my best friend since college. He had been in my wedding. The guy who had stood by me, given me a toast, and grinned in my face was secretly cheating on my wife. For how long? A year or more. Emily looked at me like a predator that has just finished butchering its prey. Then she laughed. That sound, that stupid sound pushed me over the edge. I moved before I could think or stop myself, before I knew what I was about to do. But Emily did too, because as I lunged, she grabbed something off the counter and flung it at my head. The glass smashed on the wall behind me. Fragments fell down like jagged bits of her wrath. I scarcely flinched. She did not make it. Perhaps she didn't. Perhaps she simply wanted to make a statement. Emily was now breathing rapidly, eyes flaming, hands curled into fists at her sides, as if she were the victim, as if I were the one who had mistreated her. You've ruined my life, she screamed. I laughed. I laughed because this woman's arrogance was like something out of a movie. I ruined your life. I stepped forward. You cheated on me with my closest buddy. God knows how many other males. And I've ruined your life. Emily's chest rose and fell in quick bursts, her whole quivering in rage. But beyond all that rage and vitriol, I saw something more. Fear that is not motivated by guilt, the type that resulted from losing. Because, for the first time, Emily wasn't in control. Her gaze shifted to her phone, to the email I had written regarding the consequences, which were barreling toward her at full speed. Then the fight left her, just like that. Her expression relaxed. Her posture relaxed and her voice softened. Wait, she said, taking a breath and straightening herself out. Let's just pause for a moment. Just think, I breathed sharply. Think about what? She took a step towards me. Not angry right now, not smug, sweet and smooth, like the woman I once married. We don't need to do this. Her voice was sweet, almost pleading. I was stupid. I was selfish, but baby, we can fix this, baby. That word, that damn term. She reached for my arm, her touch, warm, familiar, poisonous. I looked down at her, this lady who had betrayed, and laughed in my face. And now? Now she was fighting to save herself rather than our marriage. And it was the moment I knew. I was quite positive Emily would say anything. Emily would do everything, including cheat, manipulate, and destroy. Because Emily was not sorry. Emily was simply losing. I grinned as I stared into her eyes. That flawlessly staged desperation. Her eyes fluttered. No, I took a step back, moving away from her grasp. No, Emily. This is beyond our ability to fix. Her lips parted only slightly. She wasn't used to hearing the word. And before she could speak or twist the knife any further, I turned and walked away. For the first freaking time, I walked away. But as I approached the door, she said something that stopped me cold. Something that caused my blood to freeze. Something that altered everything. You think you're finished with me? Her voice was no longer gentle. It was crisp, final. I turned my head slightly and waited. Then she whispered, You have no idea what is coming. I did not turn around. I didn't give her the satisfaction of feeling those words sink their teeth into me, poisoning the air and slithering around my spine like a threat wrapped in silk. I should have ignored her. She should have continued walking. She was left in her own wreckage. There was something about her voice, however. The way she put it, it was not an empty threat. It was a promise. Slowly, I turned. What the hell does that mean? Emily's lips curved, not smiling. A warning. It means what she says. Voice. Smooth and steady. It's dangerous to imagine you're in control now, but you don't know what I'm capable of. I let out a short breath, attempting to suppress the cold, creeping sensation in my gut. You have already lost, Emily. I motioned toward her phone. Your boss knows. Everybody knows. Whatever game you are playing is over. Her expression did not change. Do you believe that was my game? A single horrifying second passed. Then she laughed. Not loud. Soft. Amused. She seemed to know something that I didn't. I took a step forward, my pulse pounding. Emily, what have you done? She did not respond right away. Instead, she leaned against the counter, picked up her phone, and began browsing casually, as if she wasn't unraveling my entire life in real time. Then she tapped something, held up the screen, and turned it to me. And I stopped breathing when I saw a bank transfer from my account to hers. Thousands of money. Not once, not twice. Dozens of moves going back months. At first, I couldn't process what I was seeing. I'd never sent her money like this before. I had never approved any of these transactions. But then I noticed a memo line on one of them. Love you, babe. I hope this helps. What the hell? I stared up at her, my throat tightening. How? Her smirk broadened. Come on, baby. We have been married for 7 years. Do you believe I didn't know your password? My stomach sank. No, this is not genuine. She stepped forward, eyes fixed on mine. I'm looking forward to seeing my reaction. You were so concerned about me cheating, she purred. You didn't even check your own bank account. My mouth became dry. This is fraudulent. She tilted her head. Is it? Another beat of quiet. And then, just to push the knife further, she whispered. Or have you been sending money to your adoring wife the entire time? I noticed it then. The preparation is the trap. She had been planning this for several months, if not longer. slipping money out slowly, making it appear as if I had given it to her, making sure that if things went wrong, she could change the script and make me look like the fool. Or worse, the abuser. My vision blurred. "You are insane. Manipulative," she exhaled. "Please don't do the angry husband threatens his vulnerable wife stuff. It will not benefit you." I squeezed my hand so hard that my nails dug into my palms. "I have evidence that this is a forgery. Can you?" She responded immediately. "Because from where I stand, the only evidence anyone will see is a devoted husband lavishing his wife with money." She shrugged, casual, effortless, completely in control. And that's when I realized I'd underestimated her. The cheating, the lies, that only scratched the surface. Emily wasn't simply disloyal. She was a damn predator. And I'd just wandered right into her web. I needed to get out. Not only outside the house. She needs to get out of her situation. Because that's how this was set up. A meticulously planned strategy to bury me before I realized I was in danger. Emily wasn't simply cheating on me. She was destroying me. And I'd played right into her hands. I forced myself to breathe and think. My first instinct was to lash back, to break something, to yell. But that was exactly what she wanted. She wanted me to lose control. Because if I did, she might use it against me. I instantly saw the broader picture. The bank transmits the fraudulent paper trail. The way she pushed me, it wasn't simply about getting money. It wasn't even about seeking vengeance. This was about power. She wanted to damage me in such a way that I couldn't defend myself. She wanted to be the victim. A husband became enraged and sent money, only to return it. Who grew controlling when she attempted to leave? She was making me look like the evil guy, and I was seconds away from giving her exactly what she needed. I tightened my hands and forced my shoulders to relax. Then I smiled. Emily blinked. "What the hell are you happy about?" I met her gaze. Calm. Cold. "You actually expected me to fall for this?" For the first time, her expression wavered. I moved closer, my voice falling. "You were sloppy, Emily." She narrowed her eyes. "What exactly are you talking about?" I shrugged. "Casual, confident, these bank transfers." "You've made a mistake," she scoffed. "Bullshit." I took another step. I leaned in, allow her to see the total, unwavering assurance in my eyes. "Do you understand what occurs when someone makes unlawful transfers?" I asked quietly. "Banks maintain timestamps. They keep track of places. They keep a record of the gadget utilized." Emily's face twitched. "There it is." I continued going. "And when I make a fraud claim, I inform them that I had no knowledge of these activities and that someone gained access to my accounts without my consent." My smirk grew. "They are going to conduct an investigation." I watched her confidence disintegrate because she realized I was correct. She had been careful, but not enough. If I filed a fraud complaint, contacted the bank, and brought this to court, she would not simply lose. She could go to jail. She knew it. She took a step back, allowing her mask to drop. "You would not." I grabbed out my phone and began typing. She lunged. "Wait." I raised my hand and stopped her cold. "No, Emily." My voice sounded firm. "Final. You're finished." Her breath caught. I pressed send. She gasped. Actually gasped. "What have you done?" I stared her in the eye. My heart is beating. My entire body was shaking from the weight of what I had just done. "I submitted a fraud claim," I explained, "and I forwarded everything to my lawyer." Emily's expression became blank, and for the first time that night, she had nothing to say. There are no lies, no manipulations, just defeat. I approached the door, grabbed my keys, and opened it. Before I went, I made one last spin. Emily stood there stunned, her pristine world falling around her, and for the first time in years, I felt liberated. Then I stepped out, closed the door behind me, and never looked back. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.